Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life. Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Thank you.
And Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted. Skipper Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome to episode 195 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. AI Santa is busy getting ready to deliver presents, so real people are back in the pod seat for this episode. So next stop on his magical mystery promotional tour for weareterriers.substack.com is David Hartrick. How are you doing, Dave?
Yeah, not bad at all, Matt. It's been a while since I've been on. Nice to be back. I've been on with Brady, but I've not been on with yourself for quite a while.
No, and back as well, we've got Jerry all the way from the USA. How are we doing, Jerry?
I'm doing great, getting ready for Christmas and looking forward to opening some gifts and washing out the taste of watching Huddersfield Town play Norwich today.
Yeah, well, speaking of gifts, that certainly wasn't one that we saw today, but let's do the sponsor first. So this episode, as always, is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Use our code of AHTTC10 to get 10% off all of your online orders. Also, as well, the Magic Rock will be open, I think, for Boxing Day and when we play Middlesbrough. So get yourself down there and you might just see one or two of the lads drowning their sorrows down there. Right, I'll be honest, I lost my head before kickoff with this, Dave. I saw the lineup and I saw Sorba Thomas through the middle again, and I just thought this guy's learned absolutely nothing once again. Huddersfield Town's all of their creativity comes down the right-hand side through Sorba Thomas. You move him infield and nothing comes from him. And yet again, he's moved him infield and nothing's come from him. Honestly, it baffles me. It baffles me how it would enter his head to make this move, considering what we saw the last 2 or 3 occasions he's done it, and we've got nothing from Sorba Thomas. In fact, what we've done is we've made Sorba Thomas worse and made the team worse as a result by moving him out of position. And I just lost my head when I saw it. I just thought, well, we're going to create absolutely nothing today. And lo and behold, what was the XG? 0.08 at one point when I checked. I think that bears to the decisions, Dave. What would you say?
I don't necessarily agree with.
I've started hard there already, haven't I?
Yeah,
I've gone in quite hard already.
I don't necessarily agree with that, if I'm honest. I think I understand where you're coming from, and I understand the logic behind it. But I think there have been games where Sorba's been quite good through the middle, and I think he did spend most of his time on the right, in truth. I mean, regardless of where it said he was on the team sheet. I think the problem Town have got at the moment is Sorba is all they've got, and it's trying to put him in a position where possibly he's not going to have 2 men to beat every single time, because opposition analysts just put 2 men on Sorba and that's kind of you nullified. And I think I said it briefly off air, but it's probably not a great tagline to sell this podcast. But I'm kind of struggling for new things to say, because it's just another game that kind of shows all the problems that Huddersfield Town have, that we know. They need more creativity. They need a passing midfielder. They need a striker with real presence. I still think they need another winger, because I just don't think Sorba can do it all on his own, whether you play him through the centre or whether you play him out wide. So, but I know where you're coming from, but I would dispute that. There has been games where he's been good for this. I mean, think about Birmingham last season, where he was really good through the middle. And sort of join that press, and I kind of get.
Remember it good, Dave, was Fulham away under Carlos Corberan. That's the last time I can remember that working, to be honest.
But I think they were looking for some energy through the middle, because when you lose Wardy, you don't have a lot of energy high in that press, and I can kind of understand trying to get Sorba higher in the press. But as I said, that's only what it looked like on paper, because he spent most of the game doing, in the position he usually is, which is out on the right. And he actually did a pretty good job covering defensively today, because we'll get into the defending and the defending from wide positions a bit. But Sorba wasn't one of the worst defenders today by a long stretch.
No, he works. He always works hard, doesn't he, Jerry? Jerry, how did you see it then when we lined up? I mean, Darren Moorey's hamstrung, isn't he? By what he's got, nothing's going to change, is it? Until January, and even then, it might not be till the end of January. It's just the way that the window falls and goes, isn't it? So, I mean, when I saw it, like I just said today, my head just went, "Oh, not again through the middle." But I mean, there's only so much he can kind of do before it's making, as we say over here. What is it, Dave? It's making a silk purse out of a sow's ear, isn't it?
It's extremely frustrating that over the summer, Matt, you said we need to sign a central striker. I said we need to sign a central striker. Kevin Nagel said we need to sign a striker. I called up a starfish at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and I said, "Hey, starfish, what do you think Town need to sign here over the summer?" And the starfish said, "Well, I'm a brainless invertebrate at the bottom of the sea, but Town clearly need a striker. Like, even I, obviously, come on." And so here it is, a couple of days before Christmas, and we're lining up as a pair, at the top of this, sort of 3-5-2, where, Sorba playing a little bit underneath Bergzorg, with Delano Bergzorg and Sorba Thomas as our two up front. And I sort of agree with both of you in the sense, Dave, I think having Sorba, in that position, and then you're right, he definitely drifted wide a lot as well. Isn't like the worst idea I've ever heard, but I think that would be a lot more effective playing off of a more traditional Danny Ward type, central striker as opposed to Bergzorg. You want somebody who plays with their back to goal, let Sorba run off of him, as opposed to Bergzorg, who kind of wants to do the same thing, out of a front two that Thomas does, which is get on the ball, run at people. It's just, as a pairing, that's to me is what doesn't work. Like, on paper, could you have Sorba up front in the, in a two? Okay, yeah, sure, we can try that, kind of as this withdrawn striker. In practice, when you pair him with Bergzorg, I don't see how that's going to work. Like, both of them, it doesn't work to me. I felt like if you want Thomas on the field, and you definitely have to have Sorba on the field for all the things we've listed, it just seems so much more natural to have him on the right in a three up front, which we don't have Pearson. Maybe now's the time to go to four at the back. We could put Headley on the left, put Jackson, who's healthy again, on the right. We've got a midfield three where, with, now that Kasumu's healthy, that makes sense. Kasumu, Rudoni, and Hogg, I think, might be their first choice three for a midfield three. So it did not feel to me like a promising lineup when I looked at it. I don't think I would say it's impossible for Down to put together a good performance from putting that starting 11 out there. But it also did not fill me with confidence, to answer your question, Matt. Like, when I saw the team sheet, it's crying out for a Danny Ward in that kind of formation, and they don't have Danny Ward. It was predictable that they didn't have Danny Ward. It just felt like a game where, you really see the struggles that we had over the summer really laid bare. And that's not to take, the blame away from Darren Moore, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. The bottom line is this is 14 points from 16 matches. The last 5 matches in particular, I have found incredibly uninspiring. But the formation issues in particular, I think, really go back to the failure to sign another option over the summer.
I mean, going back to Danny Ward, that was the glaring omission from the team sheet, wasn't it? And,
yeah.
And I remember when Danny Ward got his new contract in the summer, and I think a lot of us were like, yeah, okay, Danny Ward, but for 2 years, and that sort of 2-year contract now, even if it is reduced terms, that 2-year contract now is starting to look a long time, isn't it, for Danny Ward? And I'm sure it's not intentional. It's just you've got a 33-year-old striker. I think he turned 33 the other day, didn't he? Who's breaking down quite a lot, and it's just another level of frustration, isn't it? Because Danny Ward, if he's ever fit, is actually he's a decent striker at this level, but he's just never fit. So, people will caveat that by saying, no, he's not good enough because he's never fit, and it's a frustrating, sad position that we find ourselves in, because a fully fit Danny Ward makes a difference in terms of how we can play and how we can set up. A half fit Danny Ward doesn't really, and a zero fit Danny Ward gives us a whole different level of problems as well. And again, Dave, I can see it written on your face. It's like, well, it's got to be addressed in January, isn't it? And that's all we can really say, isn't it? That has to be addressed in January, because and Danny Ward's 2-year contract. I mean, it's a Neil Warnock one, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah, I think he was good under Warnock. He played through injury for Warnock. Somebody else has come in and he's not playing through injury. And I get it. I completely understand it. I think Wardy has given a lot over the last couple of years. I think he's put his body on the line a lot. But the thing is, Huddersfield Town need a striker. That is just the bottom line. And I think the problem you've got with Bergsorg is that I'm still not 100% sure what he's good at, if I'm honest. We had a long discussion on the We Are Terriers pod about it. I think it was not this week, the week before, where it's not to say that we don't rate him or we don't think there's a world where he could be a good and useful player for Huddersfield Town, but we're just still not 100% sure what that player is, or where that player should be, or how you use him best. But the issue is that it's not just that they haven't got Danny Ward, it's that there's strikers that are available. So you look at Ward and you look at Hudlin and you look at Harritt when he's available, obviously when he's injured. They're all so different. You have to play different ways to get the best out of them. And it just shows where this squad is at the moment, that there's kind of no through line between the strikers. And you don't want 3 strikers who all do the exact same thing. You don't, because you want to be able to change games when you bring someone on. But at the same time, you need a bit of connective thread. And there's no sort of connective thread between Delano Bergsorg, Danny Ward, Carl Hudlin. They're so different. You have to do completely different things. And I think with the thing about today was that I said at half time, as I said, we'll get into it, but I don't think Town did bad first half. But the problem was, got nothing in the final third. There's nothing there. Norwich threw the kitchen sink at them at times, and they left huge gaps at the back. You could see it. But Town just don't have a passer to pick people out in those gaps. They don't have people running into those gaps because they're confident in their sort of attacking plan. And they don't have a striker who gets himself central if you're going to create those chances. It's just, as I said, we all know what the problems are. And we've still got, another week or so before the window's open. And then they need to address these problems quickly.
It's 3 games as well, isn't it? You've got two big home games. Blackburn is becoming a huge game on Boxing Day, because I have to be honest, when walking away from the Preston game, my patience, we'll be honest, Dave knows my thoughts on Darren Moore. I made my thoughts clear on Darren Moore when we appointed him. I thought it was the wrong move, but I didn't want to be one of those Town fans with, who have an agenda and go, well, this is wrong, everything's wrong, and every week just kind of hammer him because I didn't want him in the first place. I wanted Darren Moore to change my mind and be the guy that came in and steered the ship in the right direction. But everything that I feared just seems to be, I know the limitations of the squad, but there's a certain way to work within limitations, and I just don't see it. And that was the problem. I still don't see Darren Moore working with a limited squad. And even after January, it's still going to be limited to a certain point. Even if we do sign 2-3 players, it's still not going to be a top class squad at this level. And I do worry that, and coming away from Preston, I just don't see anything that he's implemented so far. And it may just be me having a blindness, I don't know, but I just don't see any patterns developing. I don't see any forward way of playing. All I see is just Town being happy to keep a game 0-0 for as long as possible, and then when they go 1-0 down, shit, everything just goes wrong. People panic, and there's no sort of confidence that once we go 1-0 down, we can turn it back. I know we got the equaliser against Millwall. That was great. Maybe a bit of fortune, but it all counts.
A bit.
I just don't see. I just don't see it at the minute. I just don't see where Huddersfield Town are heading in terms of what they're wanting to do. I just don't get it at the minute. I just look at Huddersfield Town, and my overriding thought is I just don't get it. I don't get what Darren Moore brings. I don't understand what the club want to do. I just understand that at the minute we have to grit our teeth and just take it at the minute until January, and then cross our fingers and hope for the best. But I know Dave goes on about those strikers, but I think we need more than one striker, because Danny Ward, as it stands, you can't rely on someone who's constantly injured. So we talk about Bergzog. Bergzog came as a left winger who cuts in. That's probably where he's happier. He's not really a striker. He's having to sort of play. He can play there. He's not. Players these days are adaptable and flexible, aren't they? But he's probably happier coming in from the left-hand side, which appears to be his natural position coming in. And maybe if you have someone like him on the left and Thomas on the right and a decent forward who can knit things together, that's great. But what I don't see either is like Dave's mentioned about this passing midfield. I don't see anybody that can knit a play together from phase one, from the first third to the second third to the third. There's absolutely nobody that can do that. Under Neil Warnock, what they were doing when those spaces Dave mentioned happened, they were just hoofing, they were just kicking the ball high, into the pitch and then turning and then swarming around. It was very similar, Dave. Do you remember how Barnsley played under Valerian Ismail, wasn't it, with that 3-4-3? And basically all they did was just kick the ball long and then swarm around it, didn't they? That was pretty much what they did. And that's essentially what we did. And for me, and the thing that slightly irks me a little bit is that was quite successful for us, wasn't it? We stayed up. We did it. We stayed up. And we've still got a similar sort of playing staff at the minute. And I just sort of sit there and think, well, why don't we keep doing that rather than, I don't understand what we're trying to do at the minute. If we don't have a passing midfielder, kick it long and chase it. We're not even doing that at the minute. And it's just, I just don't see what we're trying to do. And apart from keep things tight. And the thing is, when during this game, defensively, we are making mistakes now. And I don't think we were a bit since. We're making a few more errors. And maybe that's because Matty Pearson isn't there. Matty Pearson's a big loss, isn't he? And out wide, we tend not to be brilliant at blocking crosses, do we? I mean, maybe Josh Ruffles makes a difference, when he comes back. I'm not sure. But we saw today the second phase, wasn't it, Dave? Jerry, from the corner today. The corner's coming, it's cleared out, and then the ball comes back in, and I don't know whether it's Rodoni who's supposed to be marking McCallum, but he starts deeper, doesn't he? So he initially it comes in, and he's more in the region with Hellick and what have you, and then he just sort of peels back round, and I don't know if it's Rodoni who's supposed to be on him or whether it's a man marking system. I don't know, because I don't know what's going on when I don't understand what I'm watching sometimes when I watch it. And the ball comes back in, and there's a free header, and it's poor. I mean, we have to give credit to Maxwell for that save in the first half. It's a good save where he keeps out Barnes, isn't it? That's a really good save from Chris Maxwell, who again's coming for Lee Nichols, who obviously wishing Lee Nichols all the best, who's out with concussion at the minute. But yeah, it's just I just feel really unhappy watching Huddersfield Town, and I don't really want to go watch them. To be blunt, and I might not.
They didn't change your mind today, Matt? That wasn't a thrilling experience on your couch watching that. No, the goal to me, it felt like the sort of thing where if you just sit back and try to just keep the game at 0-0, and it felt at halftime. I think you were right, Dave. They defended really well in the first half. I think, it was one of those where, that's the positive, is that if they defend like that for another 45 minutes, then, they can at least scrape a 0-0 draw here. But I don't know how many more of those first halves you would have needed for Town to have scored once, much less like twice and say, oh, well, we're going to get a win that way. Like 6 halves, 7 halves, there was just absolutely nothing going forward, like at all. And the problem with playing that way is that if you get in one situation, like off of that corner where you've got, I think it was Bergzorg who's trying to, close down the cross, and that's not his strength. Like, it's just we're on a corner. It's a scramble situation. And then somebody, I think Steve, I read his, ratings there on We Are Terriers immediately after the match. It's great. Everybody subscribe. I think he said it was Rodoni who he thought lost McCallum there, but that's a tricky run to keep track of. Like, some credit I think is due, for McCallum there in Norwich. It's a good ball in. But at the same time, if you don't attack at all, eventually you're going to be in this sort of situation where, oops, like we've got Delano Bergzor trying to shut down a cross. Oops, we've got, Jack Rodoni trying to track this sort of, run in the box on a second phase sort of thing. And bad things happen sometimes. Something in the very similar vein just happened for Town in the previous game against Millwall, where, we just kind of thunk a shot into the box and, the handball penalty fairy sprinkles some magic dust and Town, get a draw out of it. Those things happen when you don't move forward. When you don't score goals, you're at the mercy, in a lot of ways, of things going wrong. Just one mistake and you're down 1-0. And it felt like game over. Like, that was, I said after the match, the word I tweeted was Fotheringham-esque, and that was the moment I was thinking of where, they scored and that's it. Like, there's, no chance Town are going to score a goal and get anything out of this game on the road against a good team. Like, it felt like there's no hope of that happening. And that, when you talk about, Matt, it not being fun to watch Huddersfield, that's exactly, again, I would agree because of that moment where it's just like the opposition scores once and it's just, it just feels like, oh, well, that's it. It's over. There's no way. And it didn't necessarily feel like that against Millwall because they're Millwall. Norwich, are a much better team than that. It's just like, it's not happening. And that's such an immensely frustrating way to feel. And when, you see, everyone on Twitter afterwards with their more out graphics and angry tweets and everything, I am of the opinion that the reality of the transfer situation, the reality, having listened to the Mark Cartwright discussion with Stephen this week, Moore's not going anywhere, I don't think. I would be shocked at this stage, before this run of festive fixtures, all of them in a row, before the window where he's clearly very involved. It's not happening, but I get all of the frustration. I get all the anger. It's not fun, Matt, like you said.
I don't disagree with any of that, but the only thing I would say is that I'm kind of looking at it, and I know what you're saying, Matt, about like going back to a bit of Warnock ball, but that only worked in a very specific situation, and I think it only works against certain sides as well. And I think you have to be quite clever about it. And at the moment, Town, they don't really have the right personnel to execute that game plan. And the problem is, if you set out to go at them, I think there is a danger against a side like Norwich that you just get picked off, and then that's another game you've lost 4-0. And everybody is saying, why didn't we go there and shut up shop and get a point? I think at the moment we're more, and again, I'm not defending it, but we've been open on our podcast that neither me or Steve are completely convinced by Darren Moore, but at the same time, we are convinced that it's a huge decision to get rid of him, because if you do, you've got to get the next one right. You have to get the next one right. The amount of managers you've been through, the pressure on that decision is huge, and he's going to be working with the same thing. And let's be honest as well, I think 99% of Town fans that we survey are going to tell you that Neil Warnock is a better manager than Darren Moore. Neil Warnock's Huddersfield Town at the start of this season were awful and had all the same problems.
I think they were better than this, though, Dave. I'll be honest, I do.
Well,
I know they weren't great.
That Norwich home game, I thought they were terrible at Plymouth. The two Middlesbrough games, I didn't think they were great at all. I think there's a win against Rotherham doing a hell of a lot of heavy lifting in that run, if I'm completely honest.
I mean, I was at Plymouth and I felt that we were the better side at one point against Plymouth in the second half, and then Ballymumba did his run and then it went to pop. But there were moments there where Radoni's missed a sitter, Danny Ward's missed a sitter. I mean, we're not even getting in the chance to be in games at the minute, or being with the chance of winning games, and it's just dour. And I understand why managers do it, because they're trying to protect what we've got, because we're not great. I know Fotheringham did the same thing last year, and it was a case of just trying to stay in the game until the last 15 minutes and then throw a chaos ball in and see what happens. But we're making mistakes prior to that, which means we're out of the game. I mean, my main criticism of what Warnock was good at and what Darren Moore and Fotheringham before him weren't good at was that Warnock knew how to get the pressure off the players off the pitch and on the pitch better. I know it wasn't brilliant. I'm not going to say it and say we were like 2008 Barcelona, because it wasn't great, but it was enough. And you know, I would revert back to more direct balls, even if it's up and under football, just to try and turn, you know, it's just to try and turn the opposition sometimes and win the throwing up the pitch. This is, you know, just little basic things, and then just try and play in the opposition half. But I'd only do it till January. I'd only do it till January, and that's where the changes have to come in January, because you can't keep just playing nothing ball at the minute, because we won't win any games. I mean, we've won 2 in 16, and I would argue that we shouldn't have won either of those games. Sunderland was a very good defensive display, but Sunderland probably should have beaten us. In QPR, I've no idea how they didn't equalise or do more in the last 20 minutes of that game. We were in a fortunate position whereby Sheffield Wednesday have lost again today. Thank you, Carl and Grant. Love you lots today. Not so much before today, but, you know, Carl and Grant's done us a solid. Southampton have beaten QPR, and we're 2 points above that bottom three. And I'll be honest, Dave, when the injury, when we appointed Darren Moore and he got that injury curse that struck us, I thought we would be in the bottom three by this point. So I am actually quite pleased in a way that we're not. But by the same token, the performances that we're seeing are just they're just not good enough at the minute. But I want just to go back to your point on Darren Moore as well. We're in such a precarious place, because I'm sure Mark Cartwright has lined up transfers for January. And I would hazard a guess that a lot of them would depend on Darren Moore being in position as well. So now if you get rid of Darren Moore, these people who are going to come in January are going to go, well, what the hell am I coming into here? You know, it affects a lot more than just the immediate future. And there's a lot, and it's a difficult one, because if, you know, Darren Moore's got some really good links, hasn't he, with Liverpool and one or two other places, I think West Ham, and where we can get loans from. And if you sack Darren Moore, then that link goes as well. And if you've lined up, say, I don't know, Ben Doak or something from Liverpool, then that goes, and that transfer gets pulled, and then you're back to the drawing board. And so I understand the difficult nature of it. It's just, and I know the squad is poor, but there are one or two good players in the squad, and those good players are just currently being dragged down. And I just feel like a lot of them are feeling that pressure at the minute. And what Warnock was good at is he was the master, wasn't he, taking the pressure off and putting it all on him. Whereas at the minute, I mean, everyone looks like they've got the weight of the world on their shoulders again at the moment, and that's just, and maybe that's just the youthful nature of those in charge at the moment. I don't know, because I don't know. There's a lot here where we just kind of like going sigh, isn't it, Dave? And nothing will change until players are in and out. It's just we're in this cycle of misery. Yeah,
I know what you're saying. I listened to the Cartwright interview. I spoke with Steve about it. I think he was trying to show that they were going to back Darren Moore and that it was a huge part of the process. There's a reality here. Huddersfield Town players, they're going to sign players for Huddersfield Town, not for Darren Moore. They wouldn't sign players for Neil Warnock in the summer. They didn't go and sign players specifically for Carlos Corberán. They signed players who fitted within their remit and the club's remit. So I don't think, you know, if you got rid of Darren Moore tomorrow, I don't think it massively affects the transfer window, if I'm honest, because I think
the target makes some players think maybe twice if Moore is the selling point. That's what the point was, really.
But I don't think Darren Moore is. I don't think there will be, you know, say they're going to bring 4 in, right back, winger, striker, passing midfielder. Darren Moore may well be the sort of conduit for one of them, possibly even 2 of them, but it won't be for all 4. And they will have a list and they will have reserve targets. And if they haven't got Darren Moore, they've got to go out and get someone else, and you've got to get someone else, and someone else has got links with somewhere else. Or so I don't know if it's that big a factor, but it's just Neil Warnock was, let's be honest, the fact he was at the club really affected their summer transfer window on lots of levels. Some we can talk about, some we can't, but it made it very, very difficult. They had to. One of the reasons I think my personal opinion is that they changed when they did, is to try and get things lined up for January with some of those barriers removed. So I think the problem I have with it all at the minute is that I don't disagree with you, Matt, but at the same time, I just think that if you played more open football, the fans would be even worse if you kept getting picked off and losing 2 or 3-0. I think you haven't got the personnel to do what he wants to do, which is why we're struggling to say what he wants to do at this point. I think if you're wanting to go back to sort of going long and then hunting the ball down, the problem is you have so little of the ball as is. You're just providing turnover opportunities again and again and again. So I don't know if I'd advocate for that either, if I'm honest. I just think at the moment there's kind of only really one tune you can get from this bunch, and there may be other managers who could get a little bit more or could play it in a different way. There are a hell of a lot of managers who wouldn't even be getting this map. That's the other side of the coin here that we have to think about. And I just think until we
I'd
get to
rather not.
February, well, but it's true. It's for everything fans think about Darren Moore. There are managers who would not be doing what he's doing with them. And I just think that it's such a precarious is the word, Matt. You use the right word, really. It is precarious because if you get rid of the manager, does that sort any of the actual problems? I don't really think it does. I think once you've plugged the holes in that squad and you've got a first team that looks a lot stronger on paper, if you're still not getting results, then you go, okay, right, the problem is in the dugout. But at the moment, all the problems come from the lack of personnel. They desperately need, I would say, at least one wing back to play one side or the other, but there is sort of an established wing back who can defend just as well as they can attack and doesn't need constant cover all the time, so that you can tactically do things different with that role. They desperately need, as you pointed out, and I've said it a million times, they definitely need that passing midfielder who can spot the angles, spot the spaces. Carol Eiting, Aaron Moy, there's no analog for that in the squad whatsoever. There's no one who can do that, and that's a huge miss. They desperately need that strike. We've already talked about it. I still think they need that winger. Whether I think the winger might possibly be like sort of fourth on the list of priorities, but I just think Sorba Thomas is expected to do so much. Bear in mind, over on the left, you don't play with a winger. If you play Bergsorg there, he's going to cut inside. If you play Josh Karoma, he's going to cut inside. So
I don't know. Who can go on the outside there, haven't you? So you've got a bit of a.
I mean, Headley to me is an issue at the moment because I think for all his promise, for all his promise and all the things he does well, there are other things that he just needs game time. He needs time on the pitch. He needs to click the games up so you've got the experience to read situations. But at the moment, Huddersfield Town aren't really in a great place to have players on the pitch who need
I was going to say that.
minutes in their boots to sort of get that experience. It's just it is a difficult situation for everyone at the minute.
You need to if you've got young players who are currently struggling and they need some, for want of a better analogy, they need a pair of armbands on for a little bit. You need the players around them to be able to carry them through a little bit as well, and we don't have that either. I think there's only Jonathan Hogg, who's playing relatively well in that sort of middle area at the minute, who's organising and getting everything around. And to be honest, we've needed a Hogsessa, the great Hogsessa, we'll call it. That we needed a Hogg replacement for quite a while, haven't we? Not necessarily just to bump him out of the team, but that role itself needs a younger pair of legs in there as well to assist. And because Jonathan Hogg can't play 3 games in a week, can he? Just not with his sort of injury record as well. He's probably playing through quite. I would imagine playing through quite a lot of pain because he's had long-standing thigh and hip issues, hasn't he? So we need to be fair on the Hogmaster, shall we say? Shall we read some comments out? We're doing this live, so let's read. Let's have a look. So Bernard Lazuski is all over it at the minute. He is not in. I don't think Darren Moore's his mate at the minute. So let's have a look. So Oliver Barnes says every game it feels like we're a National League side who've got a big FA Cup tie, no ambition, and just waiting to concede. Feels like everything has to go perfect for us to get anything. I mean, I do feel that the last bit especially.
I don't disagree with that at the minute. I don't at all.
And he says, dread to see how how empty the stadium will be on Boxing Day. Can't blame people either. It is dreadful. Simon Bray says, I'm still waiting for this switch to be turned on. I wonder if it needs wiring up first. If you know a good electrician, Simon, let us know. And Bernard says, Darren Moore's not improved one player in the squad. I disagree with that. I think Saba Thomas has played quite well under Darren Moore.
I would as well. And I think we've seen a different side to Josh Koroma as well. I think defensively he's been a lot better. The problem is he can't balance it at the moment. So I don't necessarily agree all the way with that.
Damo says everyone blames Moore's tactics, etc. But generally, I don't see anyone else doing any better with the players we have available, especially in attacking positions. We just have to accept where we are. Damn these people and their level views. That's not what I was expecting. So,
I mean, I feel like this is the $1 million question. Like,
so level-headed,
every fan is asking themselves is, like, would somebody else be doing better? Is the run of results they had under Warnock, is that replicable by anybody other than Neil Warnock, right? Like, is it just the confluence of Neil Warnock and that run of games and the situation they were in, and Dave's absolutely right that the beginning of this season was not as impressive as the end of last season. At the same time, he had 2 wins from 8. Moore has 2 from 16. And I'm with Matt. The difference to me, we talk a lot about, the tactics between Warnock and Moore, to me, aren't sort of the focal point. This is extremely sort of feelings ball here, but it felt to me like Town had more belief in themselves on like an individual level under Warnock than I feel like they do under Moore, where when Town turned the opposition over, got on the ball under Warnock, it felt like there was, Matt, you're mentioning, sort of trying to play it forward very quickly, and they did that, but it wasn't always like a blind hoof up the field. Like I'm thinking about, I think it was the equalizer they scored at Watford late last season where, there was a string of passes in the midfield where, Rudoni's playing these 1-2s and, eventually they work it into the box and Rudoni scores. That sort of play to me is what's missing right now, is where Town get on the ball and they counter quickly, but not just with some huge, ball over the top, but with sort of confidence in having the ball at their feet where they, it's just more of this confidence is the word I keep coming back to. And Headley to me is, we talk about players who have improved or not improved under Moore. Headley looked a very useful, good player, I thought, under Warnock. We all remember the goal against Birmingham City, but not just that. Like, in general, I thought Headley looked a very different player under Neil Warnock than he did today, certainly, but I think than he has generally under Darren Moore. He had more belief when he got forward. Even under Moore, he has helped create a couple of goals recently. I forget, the goal against Swansea, I think, kind of came down to Headley getting forward. But we saw those sorts of runs, that sort of confidence and belief, I felt like, more under Warnock than we've seen under Moore. And to me, it doesn't feel like a huge tactical shift between the two. Warnock definitely wanted his team to play back and play on the counter, much in the same way that Moore is asking his team to sit back and play on the counter. Definitely a little bit more possession, I think, under Moore, but that counter felt like, to me, it had so much more belief under Warnock. So that's my question is, if we replace Moore, are we going to get another Neil Warnock, or is there simply not another person who could have gotten those results, or maybe even Warnock couldn't have gotten those results under the squad we have now? I think that's I don't know. I know that the results we have right now are not good enough. That's what I do know.
Yeah, I think Dave's right. I think you could do better and you could do worse. I mean, I've seen people shout for Tony Mowbray, but Tony Mowbray plays a very specific passing style of football, and if he tries that with that squad, it's going to go shoom.
Absolutely no chance. The
Yeah,
other thing is, I think Jerry's made some good points there. I think to repeat something I said on the other podcast, and it was clipped out for Twitter, so sorry, a few people will have heard me say this before, but I think you have to remember Neil Warnock got those players to play like that and play well for 5 weeks. They've played well for 5 weeks out of 18 months. And I'll be honest with you, that suggests to me the problem isn't in the dugout, because it's all right saying, well, only Warnock could do that. And you're probably right, only Warnock could do that. But even he struggled up to a point, then got them going, and then has struggled at the start of this season. It just doesn't suggest to me that the problem is in the dugout. It suggests that it's on the pitch. And I think it's let's be honest, it's the recruitment policy over the last 2 years has put the squad into this position. And I think I still come back to the same place. I'm not as sort of down on Darren Moore as other people. I'm not as high on him as people think I am, because if you defend him in any way, a lot of Town fans think you're desperate for him to stay. And me and Steve, I can tell you, are very sort of undecided. But yeah, there is a world where it tumbles off a cliff and it could get even worse. So you kind of, I think, until we see him with some decent personnel and some of those holes plugged, it's really, really difficult to judge.
You're going to start singing Kylie Minogue in a minute, aren't you? With the better the devil you know, aren't you? Which might actually be the right thing. I mean, I just didn't think Darren Moore was right in the same way that I don't think Tony Mowbray was right, and I just haven't seen anything to suggest otherwise. But I mean, we're at this stage now whereby if you do twist again, I mean, who do you get? Because people are going to start saying Steve Cooper, and Steve Cooper's not coming to Huddersfield Town next week.
Chance.
I can guarantee you that.
I'm not sure they'd get Tony Mowbray. Never mind Steve Cooper with things as they currently are. Managers aren't stupid, and they will be looking round going, 6 managers in 18 months. Do I really fancy that? Now, there'll always be people who do, but are they the people that you want? Are they the quality that you want? That's the thing. It's like John Eustace. People keep saying, oh, Eustace would come in and what have you. I don't know if he'd take it or not.
Going somewhere, didn't he? I remember it took quite a while to get going.
And again, he plays the style of football that you would need more than just those 4 players, I think, to plug the holes in the first team to really get going. And is he the man for like what could be quite a difficult relegation fight? Again, you need someone with a certain character for that fight as well. I don't know. This is why it's so.
You could throw Gary Rowett's name in for something. You could throw Gary Rowett's name in for something like that. You could
throw it in, but I'm going to throw it straight back at you.
But Gary Rowett's football would absolutely kill the rest of us off. I think that would be, yeah. But so I think at the minute I can see them still. Let's go through what people are saying still. So Simon Bray says, I feel there could be a cricket score when we go to Man City in the FA Cup, and that will make the situation even worse. Ponty Terrier says, apart from Helic, Jutta and Bergzorg and maybe Redoni, not any other player is championship quality. I'm sure Lee Nichols is championship quality. Who else have we got? Rapunzel, let down your hair. He says, Michael Heffler, hear me out. He has all his badges now with the squad this bad. You need a motivator. Yeah, I'm not sure that's the... It's about timing, isn't it, football, Dave? And I don't think timing is right now for that.
Huddersfield Town have had some success with first-time managers, but they've also had some difficulties in recent history. So let's try and get someone with a bit of championship experience, I think, this time.
Although then Ponticelli does say, the squad is so poor technically, it's unbelievable. Every other team we play looks so far ahead in terms of quality. And then let's scroll down. We've got Graham Kinder says, morning from Melbourne, lads. Melbourne. Go on, Jerry, you say it, because I've just butchered it, so we might as well.
It's Melbourne, right? It's just Melbourne.
Jerry's
right?
nailed it. Ponticelli says, the Tog is still in the team after all these years is a disgrace. Awful player, and it's never his fault with the finger point. Oh, I don't know if I agree with And then Graham from Melbourne says, woke up, check the score, another poor result, not surprising. Should never have got rid of Warnock until more points were on the board. I mean, that's another thing we've done to death as well, isn't it? The timing of that. There's a question. Jack himself says, how many points are we expecting from these next 3 games? I think we need to beat Blackburn. I really do, because I think Middlesbrough is very tough. And Leicester, Leicester, we're not going to beat Leicester, are we? With all the greatest positivity in the world that we're playing against probably the best championship team of the last 25 years there. It's going to be a difficult one. Sorry, Dave. I know Brighton were quite decent when they went up. But
I think you're also ignoring another big candidate quite deliberately, as is your right.
No, I think this Leicester team is. Oh no, do you know the Wolves team that went up in 17-18? They were decent.
Not going to say it, is he?
No, I thought they were overrated. But anyway, I think to be fair, I think the team they've got now is better than the team that went up. There's one for you, Dave. 3 points I expect against Leicester, Middlesbrough, and Blackburn, and I don't think it really matters how it happens, but I would imagine a win would feel better than 3 draws with the way that it's going at the minute, I would guess. But I think we've got to beat Blackburn, in all honesty. I think if we don't beat Blackburn and we drop into the bottom 3, I think by the time Kevin Nagle gets here in January, I think there'll be people stood in the runway, won't they, ready with them, ready for him. But bless him. Not that I think that's a good idea or anything, but yeah, go on, Dave, Jerry. What do you reckon are the next 3?
I think you're right. I think a win from one of those 2 home games is a must. I don't think. It's just, it also depends on the performances, right? Like, if they come out against Blackburn and they play the way they did against Ipswich way back when, this is 15 games ago now, if they play the way they did in the second half against Southampton, where they actually, had some possession, put some extended pressure on the opposing goal mouth, Blackburn nick a goal the other way, that's one thing. If it's more of what we've seen over these last several matches. And that's the thing, it's not just the results under Moore. It's that time and again, we get these games where, Town feel fortunate to scrape. We, as you point out, Matt, we've had 2 wins in 16 under Moore, and neither one of them actually felt like inspiring. Like, I was really glad for the Sunderland one. I thought they defended really well. I thought they were better value than I think you did for that one, David. But it still wasn't like they went out in the second half, Boston on the road, deservedly scored 1 and, took home all 3 points. They had kind of a pot shot from Bergsorg that came out of nothing, and then they held on. The draw against Millwall. Millwall's not a good team. That's the worst I've seen them in years. They're down there, the very next team above Town in the table, and without a very fortunate bounce. That is a loss. The Bristol City game at home, they didn't look like scoring at all after Bristol had equalized. It's not just the results. It's that these performances are terrible. They're so poor. That to me has to improve even maybe before we start talking about how many points we're going to get from these 3 games. Like, give us something to feel enthusiastic about. Even if it's just a draw, can it be a draw where they deserve the point and they look good for 45 minutes and actually attack with some coherence and show some of that belief I talked about? Before the points, that's what I'm focused on over these next 3 games.
Yeah, we've talked about it on the We Are Terriers pod. There's a way to lose, and Town don't often lose well. That's the problem. And I think in terms of points, I think they do need to win one of the 2 home games, but whether they will or not, I don't know. What they can't do is lose both. That for me is the thing. They can't lose both, because if they lose both, I do think they will be in the bottom 3. And I do think the pressure then will be absolutely huge on Moore, on everyone really. And I completely understand the thing where the fans are sort of disenchanted with it and disenfranchised with him at the moment. So you definitely want something to cling to. But you have to remember that I think it's also, Town have got a very thin squad with not great quality. And it's the time of the year where the games just keep coming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting caveats in place to say that there is a world where they get nothing. You know, they get absolutely nothing. I hope they don't. I hope they pull something from somewhere. But yeah, it
I'm
looks
not sure he
difficult.
survives that, Dave. I'm not sure he
No,
survives that.
I'm not either. I'm not at all. That's what I'm saying. I think that the pressure would just become too great. I think if you lose those three and you're in the bottom three, you know, I think the pressure is too great at that point. But it wouldn't surprise me if they got 1 point out of their next 9. It wouldn't.
At
But
Leicester. Just
the
to be
thing is with
clear.
Town is, well, this is it. Every time, that's what I was going to say. Every time you kind of think, well, on paper, you know exactly what's going to happen, they go and do something out of the blue that just completely rips that bit of paper up. And we'll see. We'll see. I think Blackburn are eminently beatable on their day at the minute. They're great at certain things, not very good at others. So I think it's a flip of a coin. I think Borough are a good side, but Town have got some decent recent history against them. And again, they do have off days. They do have off days. Leicester, it's not going to happen. You know, Town people. Somebody said to me the other day, said, "Oh, well, yeah, but we were played really, really well against them early in the season." It's like, yeah,
That
but
was
that
the
was like
perfect time to play them, wasn't it?
2 games in. They
Yeah,
weren't in
perfect.
their patterns. They weren't in their style. You watch them now, and they are defensively. They do give you a chance defensively, but the problem is they're not too bothered because they will go and score 2, 3, 4. You know, they're not bothered. So yeah, I think that's one you just have to write off. But I would say there's probably 18 clubs in that division are writing that fixture off. So it's what it is.
Imagine just being able to go out and score 3 or 4 goals at the drop of a hat, Dave. Those must be some good times. I'll be honest. I don't really remember Huddersfield Town team being able to do well. I think the League One team that got promoted in the end used to go hand some wallopings out. That was fun for a while. But there's a good comment from Sean O'Toole, says at times more at this early stage he's looking out of his depth. I do feel sorry for him, and I'm not sure who could do a better job with his squad. However, we can't keep sacking managers. Like you say, Dave, sacking managers isn't always the silver bullet that people think it is it? But
It's not.
not that Darren Marr's a werewolf or anything like that. But there's I mean, Graham says, can we bring any quality players in? Are we under financial restraints? Sorry, from the league. I think they had the financial forecasting issue, but I think they were going to
They're all
apply
right.
to push that out, weren't they? And I think that
Yeah,
haven't really heard
they're all
anything back
right.
from
They've still got money in the budget from that wasn't spent in the summer for various reasons. So they, as far as I know, and everything's pointing towards, they know the job they've got to do in January, and they know the barriers to it, but it still has to be done. So yeah, I think we spoke a little bit on it on the pod this week that they can't get it wrong is the thing. Of those 4 signings, if they go and get 4 signings for the first team, 3 of them have to work. Have to work.
I think they need 4 signings for the team. I think 2 of them have to be absolutely magic, and I still think they need a couple of options on the bench as well. To be honest, mate, I think the squad's that.
I don't disagree, but I think the problem
a lot
is
to do, isn't it? In 1 month.
Yeah, you've got to look at the reason it feels so daunting is because it's very rare that you look and you think, okay, well, we have to actually recruit for the first team here, because a lot of your recruitment is squad building. You know, you're building that player who you want to come in and become a vital clog in the first team, but not necessarily from the off. Whereas Town have got to recruit for the first team right now. There's no time when we've talked about Headley needing time and needing game time. You know, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Chris Watson says Moore just sounds very uninspiring. He uses the same language such as energized, etc. Same repeated words like Fotheringham, which makes me think, how can he inspire players? He uses part and partial a lot, which gets under my skin a little bit. I know someone who's worked with Darren Moore at West Brom and did a lot of analysis with him, and he says Darren Moore in the media is 100% different to Darren Moore in person. He says Darren Moore is an incredibly inspirational figure when you speak to him, and he's one of these people that makes you feel 10 feet tall. But the way he approaches the media is very much, I don't want to give anything away that somebody listening may get any information from. So unfortunately, when you listen to a Darren Moore interview, it's just shite basically, and it's shite by design, because Darren Moore is pretty much not going to tell you anything because he doesn't want to tell anyone else anything, and it's rubbish for fans because they like to know the ins and outs. But Darren Moore just does not want to give anything away. But apparently, in person, Darren Moore is incredibly good at lifting people and inspiring people. But as the problem as a fan is, you've only got that small window to look through, haven't you? And the window you look through is the press conference. It's little things like that, and how you see him on the pitch. And correct, he doesn't look inspiring at all. But I'm led to believe that that's not the case. And behind the scenes, he is actually a really great guy and very inspiring. And it's things like that that we like to cling on to, isn't it, Dave? But I've heard really good things behind the scenes. I wouldn't say from Huddersfield, because I've not heard anything from anyone at Huddersfield about Darren Moore, but from West Brom and Sheffield Wednesday, I heard quite a lot of good things behind the scenes, and he's throwing himself into some of the community stuff as well. So there's a good bloke there, but we just probably haven't seen the real Darren Moore yet, I would imagine. Go on,
to be fair, too, anybody's post-match interviews are going to seem tame and milquetoast following Neil Warnock, right? Like, I don't think that comparison is doing Moore any favors. I think if we go back, Carlos Corberán, I don't really remember, his media comments being particularly insightful or incisive or charismatic.
If Stephen ever asked Carlos anything technical or tactical, it'd be really interesting because he will break everything down really. But if you talk to him on a normal level, Carlos was a little bit dull, wasn't he? But Fotheringham was good value, but he just wasn't very good. Some of the stuff he'd come out with, but it just wasn't great.
Anyways, just following Warnock is a tough act when it comes to comments to the media. Just anybody is going to look a little bit less exciting from that lens, I think.
I think so. And Sean also says it's a hugely precarious position to be in. Weak squad, what looks like a weak manager, fans clinging onto a good January transfer window. Historically, it's slim pickings, utter limbo. I mean, there's one thing that fixes your issues in January window, Dave, isn't it? And that's having a lot of money. I'm not sure that's the case, is it? Unfortunately, but we don't really know what's available, do we? In terms of, and I guess we don't really know what Kevin Nagel and co-class backing the manager with financially, because we've got no history there either, have we? So we just sort of nobody really knows what to expect. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of balls in the air. Maybe we should keep them in the pants, but there's everything's sort of up in the air, isn't it, at the minute? And it's we just sat here wishing that Darren Moore's the right guy. I mean, I've done a poll on the YouTube channel, and I said, "Are you Darren Moore in or out?" And 87% of people say Darren Moore out. And to be honest, I'm probably with them, but I'm the same. I'm just not sure. Apart from that immediate, yes, he's gone. That people will probably go, yes, he's gone. But I'm looking after that, and I'm thinking, well, what comes after it? Because I'm not sure. Like I'm with you, Dave. I'm not sure it's any better, because I know that Steve Cooper's not coming. I know that Tony Mowbray is not going to start being able to perform miracles with that squad. Heckingbottom, I mean, he's like Darren Moore, isn't he? Same sort of style, and just I don't know. I just don't know I don't know who will come. And I mean, someone could throw a really exciting name at me who would come to Huddersfield Town, and maybe that would change my mind. But at the minute, I'm just like, well, if you twist, then what are we twisting for? Because that's what I would like to know, and that's the difficult stage we're in. Because I mean, because it's a new regime as well, we don't. I mean, Dean Hoyle was quite easy to read. If he sacked a manager, you would kind of half know who he would go and get, wouldn't you, Dave? You'd be able to kind of like half work it out, wouldn't you, straight away? And so you'd know whether it. Whereas now we've got absolutely no idea whatsoever. I mean, I think Mark Cartwright's technically at the wheel, so to speak, isn't he, for things like that at the moment? And I've got no idea what he would do. I know what I would do, but I've got absolutely no idea what Mark Cartwright would do. And it's just limbo, I think, is the perfect way to describe that, Sean, at the minute. And we're all just sat there grasping at the thought of a good January transfer window, and to do these podcasts as well after a game is difficult. I know Dave's a lot more level-headed because he's a Brighton fan, although he protests a little bit too much about this neutral invest in neutral. I think I've seen him jump and cheer a few times when Town have scored, and I believe his daughter is a Town fan as well. So it's definitely seeping into the Hartrick genes. But you know, when it's raw after a game, it's quite difficult to maintain that level-headedness sometimes. And to be honest, that's football, isn't it? We're all here for the passion and the mind of it, aren't we? So you know, we get it.
Of course we are.
But,
of course we are. But
it's talk an hour here, Dave. We didn't think we'd be able to fill 20 minutes, did we? We've sat here and talked absolute shite for an hour. It's really good. This.
I think I still come back to the same thing though. At the moment, there's a lot of people who will tell you Cartwright needs to go, Edwards needs to go, Moore needs to go, everything needs to start again. I think the issue was when they took Neil Warnock on, kind of Neil Warnock was in charge. You know, like you had people in the positions that couldn't really do their job with Neil Warnock as manager. And that goes for recruitment for other things as well. So I've said this on Brady's pod, I'm slightly wary of those people because there's absolutely no evidence. On February the 2nd, we will have evidence. We can say, okay, that wasn't good enough. You know, Cartwright needs to go, or that was fantastic. It suddenly feels like the club's in safe hands going forward. I just don't know now. You know, as an analyst, you can only analyse what you've got evidence for, and there's no evidence either way. And that's why, at the moment, I think a lot of people are tuning off because the football's bad. There's too many unknowns. It's a very precarious situation. You can make arguments both ways. I still think a lot of people know there are issues with the squad and you could get a bit more, but it's easier to sack a manager than it is to sack 16 players. So, you know, we all know what happens in football. But yeah, I think at the moment it's just a pretty sorry state of affairs that, like, there's no easy way out of. There's nothing you could do tomorrow that really makes a blind bit of difference.
Dave's just like naming songs now. You know, it's Saturday. It's like, do you remember, was it France 98 where they were all trying to get as many I think I remember Gareth Southgate said, "Oh, there's nothing coming out of you lot," and he's like, "Yeah, there'll be no careless whispers today." They were trying to get song names in. I've got Into the Unknown from Frozen. Daniel Bedingfield's got to get through this. It's all coming through from Dave's collection at the minute, but it's
somebody
right.
Somebody once said I look like Daniel Bedingfield, and it really annoyed me.
As much as when I sent you that 1990s wrestler the other day that I thought you looked a bit like. That,
yeah, I'm not having that at all.
That got him a little bit, I'll be honest. One of the ones. So Chris Watson says, any rumours for players? Yeah, it's been very quiet, hasn't it, for rumours? It used to get quite a few, but he said he'd like Johnson Clark Harris. I mean,
I think, but the thing is, like today, they had absolutely no presence up front whatsoever. Clark Harris at least gives you some presence, but it's the finishing that you worry about. I will say, I've heard one or two things that I've not shored up. I've not spoke to anyone at the club. Right, I do think they are working. I do think they're very busy. You know, I don't think this is a case of they're going to have a meeting on January the 2nd and go, right, who are we after then? I believe they are busy. And I think from Cartwright's interview, it was very clear that they know the task ahead and they are well aware that they need to get on with it. I don't know if you clocked it. I'm sure you got it, Jerry, but the lines about looking abroad, that suggests to me they've got a couple of targets, maybe not lined up, but certainly that they're chasing, because if you've got someone from abroad, you can't sort that in a day. You know, that is something that takes time and takes a lot of scouting. B, then there's, you know, legal issues that you have to look, can we physically get this player here with all the work permit conditions and everything else? Then it's a case of talking to the club. Then it's a case of talking to the player to see if they actually want to switch countries. That to me suggests positive things.
Groundwork been done. Yeah. I had heard that Mr. Cartwright had been out of the country. Where I'm not sure, but I'd heard he'd been into Europe somewhere. So who knows? Europe's a big place. A lot of countries in Europe. So, but yeah, the rules, they're a bit strange. They've sort of slackened the rules a little bit, haven't they, Dave? Because I think it was 15 points needed, wasn't it? Well, yeah, it
Yeah.
was nicely created by the top 6 for their own self-preservation, wasn't it? These rules, and the GBE points you needed 15. So I think you technically had to play in a top, top elite league and a cup, a league and a cup game at least to get so many points. And then there was other little bits. And if you're an international, you got bits more. I don't think Delano Bergsog hits 15 points, does he? So there's a new rule that's coming as well, whereby you can have, I think it's 4 players, isn't it, that don't hit the GBE thing as long as you give so many minutes to English players. It's quite technical, isn't it? So there are other little bits and pieces, but Town do have some, shall we say, wiggle room on foreign players. So I think they can bring in another 3 potentially under that format, or if they do pass for the GBE visa, then whatever. But there are 3 that they can get that wouldn't pass, I believe, at the minute. So, so as for rumours, it's not quite the same now. The regime's changed. You used to get loads of rumours before. Now it's quiet, isn't it? It's yeah. So there's not a lot sneaking out at the minute.
I like that. Like, I don't want there to be a lot of leaks out of the the back rooms where we're looking at this player and this player and this player. It seems more professional just to go about what you're doing and do it and get it done. And I liked the Cartwright interview. I thought he came across as the sort of person who was organized and has a plan and knows what they're doing. And I think it's still very much, TBD to see how well that plan works. But, I like that there does appear to be a plan. I would say that that's been the case for the entire Nagel tenure, is that they've made decisions. They've, said, okay, here's what we're going to do. There is a plan in place. It's just that unfortunately not all of those decisions have worked out. Ben Wiles, we've talked about, why did Town not have, this passing central midfielder? I think there was probably some hope that Ben Wiles could provide at least some of that, if not be Aaron Moy, then at least,
He's more
not
of a
be
box-to-box type, though, isn't he? Ben
yeah, but maybe not getting off the bench, against Norwich here in late December. So not everything is worked out, but I do appreciate the feeling of organizationness. That's not a word. That I get from Nagel and Cartwright. It feels like things are being run on a particular rail system. Now we just have to see where they go, basically.
Yeah, it's grin and bear it, isn't it, Dave? It's just grin and bear it until the end of January, and then we'll have a good idea about where to go. I mean, Ben Wiles, that's one thing. I think Town need to avoid buying players that are just coming back from long-term injuries as well, because those tend not to be people that hit the ground running too quickly. I think that might be fair to say. I don't want to be too harsh for Ben Wiles, but I know he's had a long-standing ankle problem, hasn't he? And I think he's had a few. I think once you have a long-standing problem, you tend to get other splinter injuries from it. Some of the muscles around your ankle or whatever weaken. I had an ankle injury when I was 18, and my shins are absolutely goosed and calves, and that's not what was injured. Not that I ever played at the same level as Ben Wiles, but so Town. That's another thing that Town need to do. But January is a difficult window, and it's a difficult podcast to do as well. We do have one piece of good news, though. So usually we like to do some form of Christmas special on the podcast, give you guys something extra in your stocking, shall we say. And this year, I couldn't be bothered doing a video. I'll be honest, one of the Feed the Ward thing, I just couldn't be bothered. And the Mark Fotheringham with the cards from Love Actually, it just didn't get enough traction last year, so I couldn't be bothered. But we have just done a 2.5-hour interview with a man who was in the dugout today. No, it wasn't Darren Moore. It was Paul Clements, ex-Town keeper. So we'll be looking to release that into the wild. Me and Brady did that, and we'll be looking to release that into the wild maybe tomorrow night, Christmas Eve night, Christmas Day, somewhere around there. And we'll do some clips, and we'll milk it for all it's worth, because that's all you're getting until I can be bothered to do another one. So there we go. But no, Clem was good value, so I think that'll be of interest for people to listen to. Good guy, Clem. So that would be good. I think the last thing we'll give it to Jay. Jay's snuck in at the end here. He's put, I like more, but I'd rather have a manager coach. I don't like producing football. I actually want to watch. Taking my daughter versus Blackburn and not expecting anything more the same. I mean, talk about the Blackburn game, Dave. Town are really strange out there against passing football teams that pass it out from the back. I mean, at one point, we were hopeless against them, but then all of a sudden, the Ipswich game and Darren Moore really found something, didn't he, at that level? The high press with Bergzorg and Koroma really seemed to work against them. So I'm not as frightened to play against these teams that pass out from the back as maybe I was about 6 months ago. I think we've got the players that can disrupt that. Blackburn are decent, make no bones about it. You know, if you let them play, they're pretty decent. But I think that I do genuinely think it's a game we can win, and I really hope for Darren Moore's sake he does get the win that we need, because it's just boring sitting here every week going, shall we sack him? Shall we not sack him? It just feels. It's just not the nice podcast to do, either, Dave. Let's be honest. They're just not fun, are they? You want your football club to be building and moving in the right direction, and when you're constantly having to tear things down because it's not right, it's just such a boring thing to witness. And hopefully we can start moving forward in January, and we're just clutching, Jerry. That's all we're doing. So I've got nothing left to really go into on this one. Jerry, Dave, anything else that you think from the game? I mean, we had a shot on target we didn't discuss in the 90th minute. Town's first shot on target came in. Didn't even discuss that, did we?
We asked about XG. The XG number I saw was 0.15 exclusively, almost exclusively off of Bergzorg's shot at the near post there.
Before then, it was 0.08. We've had some stinkers, haven't we? And to be honest, there's lots of Huddersfield fans so annoyed at the minute, and I see them all coming up in the comments. I've seen them all. Don't worry, I might not have read them all out, but we completely agree with it. It is monotonous at the minute, but it's not a new thing. Let's be honest, it's been crap since we were relegated from the Premier League, apart from that one outlier. And that one outlier of a season is starting to look more and more like a fluke, and it being down to a really, really good technical head coach that just got us on a run and kept us on a run. And I mean, to be honest, Dave, that run could have ended with one or two key injuries at certain points, couldn't it? It could have all come to, but it didn't, and now it has. But yeah, so Huddersfield Town need to start building. We need a master builder, Dave, is what we need. Is Cartwright the man? Is Darren Moore the man? We'll find out in January.
Well, that's exactly it. That it is getting a bit boring, and it is getting a bit frustrating trying to find new things to say, because there really isn't at the moment. And as I said, Steve, if you are subscribed to We Are Terriers, you'll have seen lots of Steve stuff where he is exactly where I am with it, really, which is that there's still no evidence that Darren Moore is the man to take Town forward for the next 3 years, but there also kind of isn't a stack of evidence that you can't pull down when you actually start going into it and looking at context that he isn't either. So we just don't know. And I think not knowing in football is horrible, because not knowing kind of creates, you want to feel something about your club, and in a weird way,
feel hatred at the minute, Dave.
Well,
but anger.
You say that. A lot of the Town fans I talk to, it's worse than hatred. I think if you're feeling hatred, you are invested. If Town were rock bottom, if they were rock bottom and losing every game, that vitriol would actually carry fans through. If you're successful, everybody's happy. If you're in the mid-table, but you feel you can see a progression path, you can see some
I think that's what Town fans want. That's
and at the moment, the problem is what you've got is all of these unknowns, which nobody can answer. Like, we haven't got answers. Us three sat here. Steve Chicken hasn't got answers. Richard Kuzmala hasn't got answers. Nobody can give you the answers. It does create apathy, and apathy is the real killer. I think was there 412 Huddersfield Town fans there today, and I take my hat up to each and every one of them. And I know it's the last weekend.
It's the worst fixture, isn't it, that you could get 2 days before Christmas?
That's the thing. But I know it's the worst possible time of year. It's the worst time of year to have that particular fixture, etc. But I suspect that's probably 150, 200 down on, if things were even slightly better, what it could have possibly been. And yeah, the club are well aware that apathy is the real killer. That's the thing. You need people to be invested one way or another, or a football club doesn't work. It runs on emotion.
Of course, I just want to make sure, well, not make sure, but I just want to see that Huddersfield Town have a plan. And if they've got a plan and they're following through with the plan, stick to it. If Darren Moore's the plan, stick to it. If it's not, make it interchangeable. Managers should always be interchangeable anyway, but you know where I'm coming from. That I just want to see progression for my football club, because at the minute it feels like we're back where we were 12 months ago, and that's not any form of progression. So I think that's it. I think Chris Watson says, thanks for all your efforts across the pods. It's like Huddersfield Town therapy. Honestly, mate, I think I feel like I need therapy after we do these podcasts, I'll be honest. Dave, I think it's possible, isn't it, online to give the gift of chicken in somebody's stocking, isn't it? There's a way that you can gift.
Yeah, if you go onto Substack, you can gift people a subscription, and there's also a system whereby if you don't want to gift somebody, if you can convince people to sign up, they can put that they were recommended by you, and there's all sorts of tiers of you can get 3 months, 3 year, I think, if you recommend 20 people who sign up. So there's all sorts of stuff online, but you get the podcast with me, and I'm writing the odd bit as and when I get the chance, but you get sort of all of the real analytical and the longer form stuff from Steve. But it's not, We Are Terriers is not sort of covering the news, so we're not doing injury news, and we're not turning a Darren Moore press conference into 8 pieces, all with,
just do the good stuff, don't you? Just the good stuff.
Yeah, it's your 5 conclusions. It's your sort of analysis stuff. It's interviews. We've got some good stuff lined up from people in the club, and yeah, it's just trying to. I think with the Examiner going, one of the things we were conscious of is that there needed to be like an authoritative voice still out there, and I think Steve is an authoritative voice on Huddersfield Town. I don't think anybody can really argue that. So I think it's a very good thing that he is continuing and he is getting the chance to keep doing what he's doing. There'll be lots of people watching this and listening to this who are subscribed, and I just want to personally thank them, because we've had an incredible response, and we had a number in mind that made it worthwhile doing, and we went past that number on the Thursday, and then it just kept going up and up and up and up. And it's now at a point where Steve was at Norwich today and he was at Mill the other week because he can afford to do away games and keep the coverage up and go to press conferences and various other things. So it's we were thinking about a very even more scaled down model, and the support we've had has managed it to already. We've managed to invest a lot more into it. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's signed up.
Hashtag back the beak, I think. Sean O'Toole says, Matt, where is Fraser Campbell? I don't understand what Sean means, I'll be honest. And then he's laughing. I haven't got a clue what that means. Campbell, I've got no idea. If I'd love to do an interview with Fraser Campbell if that's where he's going. I think Fraser Campbell would be a lot of fun, but I'm not. We'll try and get in touch with him. So there we go. And do you know what, Dave? Just as you've said that, Michael F93 says it's great value for anyone who's thinking of signing up. So there's your endorsement, Mike. So there we go, Michael. It is. I've signed up. I mean, it's just worth it. It's a no-brainer. It's a £5. What are you gonna do? What else are we gonna spend that on a month? Nothing.
You get all of the things that David just mentioned, and you get Robin Hood screenshot analogies from which delighted me this week. That's like one of my absolute favorite Disney movies. That's what you get. Like, you get all of the beautiful Huddersfield Town analysis. You also get Robin Hood shots. So 2 thumbs up. I can't imagine anybody listening to this would not feel like they got their money's worth from We Are Terriers. Just go subscribe. Come on.
On a website that is certain things we're not allowed to say, so I'm just going to say on a website that is easily readable as well.
There's also that.
I'm allowed to say that Reach is a load of shit because it's full of adverts, whereas chickens, you can actually read it. So I'm allowed to say that. Dave's not. I can. Yeah. So there you go. I don't even think that's where Dave was going with, but I'll say it. So there we go. And Sean says, "Well done, David. I know how hard it is to commit into fan-based media. Good on you." I mean, there's me sat here doing fan-based media, just sat there going, "What's going on here?" But anyway, yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for listening this week. It's a tough one at the minute. We all feel it. I mean, we all feel it because we're Huddersfield fans. Even Dave, he's definitely protests way too much for an invested neutral. Guys, that's it. So we'll have to manage what we do over Christmas. We'll try and get the Clem podcast out as soon as we can. In terms of reviews, we may revisit after the Middlesbrough game and cover both games. And until then, we'll hit you with the good music.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.